Mr. President, on Tuesday evening, President Biden delivered his first State of the Union message to Congress and to the American people. His remarks were timely, strong, and statesmanlike. He touched on many topics. I think his message really boiled down to two profound questions. How do we protect democracy in other nations, particularly in the Ukraine, which is now entering the second week of a horrific and unprovoked invasion by Russian forces? And then he asked, how can we protect and preserve democracy here in America? Dictators like Vladimir Putin and Xi Jinping want the world to believe that democracy is nothing more than chaos and gridlock. The people of Ukraine are showing the world just how wrong these despots are. I speak to you today from the comfort and safety of the Senate chamber of the United States of America in Washington, D.C., on a beautiful spring-like day. But I have to reflect for a moment of what life must be like at this very moment in Kyiv, in the Ukraine. What it must be like in Lviv. Those are two cities in Ukraine that I've visited, where bombs are raining down on innocent people, children, women, men, who are losing their lives because Vladimir Putin believes that he can restore the Soviet Union to its borders. We've all seen the videos, the Ukrainian grandmother, armed with nothing more than sunflower seeds and courage, confronting Russian soldiers. We've seen ordinary Ukrainian men and women, teenagers, taking up arms, making Molotov cocktails, building barricades, taking down highway and road signs to confuse the invading Russians, even laying down their lives to stop Russian tanks and convoys. In the back of my mind, I'm sure I'm thinking what many Americans are thinking. Could I do the same thing? Could I bring together the courage at this moment to stand up and fight if my home is at stake, my family is at stake, my country is at stake? The Ukrainians are answering that message every minute of every day. Their courage and unity in the face of this Russian barbarity is inspiring the world. For months, President Biden, Secretary of State Tony Blinken, others in the Biden administration have worked behind the scenes to revitalize the NATO alliance. That critical alliance emerged after the last great land war in Europe in 1945, from the allies who came out of it and said, never again. We will stand together to stop any invader against the NATO coalition, the NATO alliance. Biden administration has worked behind the scenes to remind this alliance that there comes a moment when you have to bring to this alliance the courage and direction to stand for the kind of democracy which we are all committed to. 2 years ago, we had a president who took Putin's word over the assessment of America's own intelligence agencies, and he threatened to pull out of the United States' participation in NATO. Today, we have a president who actually shared U.S. intelligence with our allies to show Putin for the liar that he was from the very start. And NATO is more unified today, thank you, Vladimir Putin, for that, than it's ever been since the Cold War or the end of World War II. In fact, nations that are not formally part of NATO, Sweden, Finland, for example, have stepped up in concert with the NATO alliance to stand our ground, to protest what's happening in Ukraine, and to protect Europe, even Switzerland. Switzerland, famously neutral in all major conflicts, has come out of its neutrality and made it clear that they too stand against the Putin invasion. In his State of the Union address, President Biden urged Congress to approve billions of dollars in emergency military and humanitarian assistance for Ukraine. Sign me up. I'll vote for that in a second, and I hope it comes soon. We need to agree on an aid package without delay and get it to the President as quickly as possible, not just for the humanitarian purpose, but for the purpose of showing American unity with the resistance in Ukraine. Ukrainian ordinary citizens are dying today because of Vladimir Putin and the bombs and missiles he's launching. And as in every war, innocent Ukrainians will soon be facing greater suffering, greater hunger, even starvation. In the year 2022, is it imaginable that this is happening in Europe? We must rally the world to support those still in the Ukraine, assist our allies and neighboring nations who are housing and feeding Ukrainians who have fled their homeland. They estimate 800,000 to 1 million Ukrainians have left the country to find safety nearby. Once again, let me thank the people of Poland. They have been opening their doors to the Ukrainians for many years, and now they're being called on in an extraordinary way to harbor these refugees and to take care of them at this moment of need. They are fleeing Putin's war. Their numbers are growing dramatically. Some have suggested a humanitarian airlift is a possibility. I don't want to rule that out. Let's explore that and see whether that is the best way to provide relief to those still in Ukraine facing Putin's attack. President Biden also promised to form a high-level task force to enforce U.S. sanctions against Putin, sanctions against Russia's political elites, and sanctions against the corrupt oligarchs. That always brings a cheer here in America because people think that these folks who have been engaged in a kleptocracy in the name of personal greed should be held accountable. And the thought that they are shopping in New York City or buying luxury condos and apartments in London or harboring their yachts in any civilized country is disgusting. They need to pay a price. And we shouldn't just freeze their assets, we ought to seize their assets and hold them to rebuild Ukraine and the devastation that the Russians are causing. Putin wants to be a czar. He and his cronies have become a pariah. We will support Ukraine, but we also have work to do to strengthen our own democracy. We also have to remember that the bordering nations, not just Poland, the Baltic states, Lithuania, Latvia, Estonia, are especially vulnerable to Russian aggression. They, as members of the NATO alliance, know that they have friends at their back, but we've got to reinforce that to the people of those small countries who worry about their very survival. Let's take a look at home. As the President said, we finally moved to a safer direction with the pandemic. What a relief it was to go to the State of the Union address and not wear a mask. Following doctor's orders, I might add, we listened to the medical experts who told us it's safe now not to be wearing a mask unless you're in a particular category of people. So most of us enjoyed one of the first public gatherings on a political nature where we were without masks and relieved to be so. We need to get back to our normal routines. We need to get our kids back in school, all of them, as quickly as possible. We've added 6 million new jobs last year, an all-time record. Things are good and positive, but inflation still is haunting this nation. Wages are up, inflation is up, but it's not just our nation. Inflation is a global problem. COVID-19 constricted the economy of the world. We are now emerging from it with new jobs and new businesses and new appetites and new consumption. It's all good, but the cost of it is inflation. I trust that we can bring this under control soon. Inflation is real. It's eating away at families' wages and savings and their faith in the future. When people work hard and can't get ahead, that's not just an economic problem. That can be a threat to our democratic spirit because it can open the door to anti-democratic demagogues. In his State of the Union address, President Biden laid out a plan to help American families afford big-ticket items that are essential. Restore the enhanced child tax credit. Help parents raise their kids and themselves out of poverty. Help families with quality, affordable daycare, childcare. Expand family and medical leave so workers don't have to choose between caring for an ailing member of their family or a terminally ill parent and keeping their jobs. Make mental health care more affordable and accessible. expand veterans' health benefits to cover more cancers and other service-related health conditions, and make prescription drugs more affordable by letting Medicare negotiate the price for medication. Just one simple thing seems to be so popular across this country: cap the monthly cost of insulin at $35. $35. There are some 8 million people suffering from diabetes in this country, and of course their families are pulling for them every day. Think of all the lives that could be improved if insulin was affordable. If a fourth or a half of those who are diabetic have to now ration their insulin and risk their health, that's just wrong in a great nation. We should have insulin at affordable prices, and $35 a month is that. It's an outrage that insulin has been priced countless times to more than $300 a vial. As we support the Ukrainian people in their immense courage, I hope we'll also find the courage to protect America's future.